I'm Paul Sims, and I'm here with
Dave Foley.
And Stephen Root.
And Kent Zbornak.
Kent Zbornak was the first AD on most of the shows and eventually was a producer. So this was literally the very first thing of NewsRadio we ever shot. I think we shot this a day or two before we taped in front of the pilot, and this could not look less like New York City.
This was shot on the Radford. This was a building on the Radford lot.
Yeah, the lobby of the Radford lot. And I remember being told at the time, like, well, we just need this to show the audience, and if the show gets picked up, we'll go back and reshoot this in some place that really looks like New York. But since we're here at the very first episode in the very beginning, I thought we should talk a little bit about the casting.
Yeah.
It was kind of a half and half thing, because a lot of the actors I wrote the parts with them in mind. I knew I wanted Dave Foley to be Dave, and I saw him at a party and said, I want to talk to you about something, and then I never really followed up on it.
Yeah.
And I went ahead and wrote the pilot.
That was, yes. We met at an Emmy party.
That's right.
And then I invited you to the after party.
And I couldn't get in.
Yes, sure, you wouldn't let you in.
They wouldn't let me in. Oh, look, this is different opening credits. I didn't remember this.
Oh, yeah.
But in the time when I, been writing the pilot, Dave, meanwhile, had taken another job.
Right.
Yes, and it was a job that I had resisted taking for about 6 months. I had resisted taking the job for like 6 months, and then they, and I kept saying, well, I'm not really right for this. And then 2 days into trying to cast my wife, they fired me.
Which made me happy, because there was about a week there where I suddenly realized that Dave Foley was not going to be Dave, and I had no idea what to do. So Dave, I wrote the part with him in mind. Andy Dick, who I loved from the Ben Stiller show and who I would always bump into at the Beverly Center. And he was always saying, put me in something. I always liked him, so I wrote that part with him in mind. Phil Hartman, I wrote that part with him in mind. And then the other parts we cast with actors coming in for auditions. And Stephen, I remember...
Well, I remember it was hard for me just to get into this audition, because the breakdown said a guy in his, mid-50s.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, and I almost didn't get in because I was too young for the role.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And I almost didn't get to do the show because after I got fired from that other show, some executive at the other network started calling and trying to talk Paul out of hiring me.
No kidding.
Yes, he called more than a few people saying, this guy is never going to be a lead, this guy can't act. And I think he was afraid that had just let go of someone and did not want them to have success. And
Yes, they called you and Burroughs and Bernie and Brad.
But I remember, Stephen, it's interesting because the part, I don't even remember now what I originally conceived Jimmy James as being, but what you came in and did at the audition was so different than what everyone else did that sort of changed
your
the part
perception
itself.
of it. Yeah. I really wanted to do this bent guy that I knew probably nobody else was doing.
I think the original... In a sense, the character was originally sort of based on my old boss, who was sort of larger than life and in a fun way, kind of blustery and stuff. But you brought a sort of weird. How would you describe it?
I remember at the table read when we sat down to the table read, and Steven was one of the guys. I went, oh my God! I never would have thought of that character sounding like that or acting like that. It completely blew me away.
And that was the only way I could see that at all on the written. I said, this is written amazingly, incredible. I can do this rhythm for this guy this way, and it was so fun.
And it was just such never would have guessed what you were going to do.
It was
and it was perfect.
It was so fun.
I'm trying to remember what. Also we had to take. Part of the process of casting a show is when you make your selections, you take them into the network and show the network people. And I remember Andy Dick when he went into the network.
I went in right behind him. He was a mess.
He was terrible.
Terrible.
He was so bad, but he was also so obviously similar to the character we wanted in his badness that
that they got it.
Yeah, they got it, and it was funny. The last person cast. Dave, why don't you talk a little bit about the last person cast?
Last person cast is on the screen right now.
Maura Tierney.
The lovely Maura Tierney. And it came right down to, I guess we'd done the network test, and then the woman that came to us didn't get the job.
Right.
And then the day of table read.
We still didn't have anybody.
We had nobody, and Paul had booked a couple of people, just 3 people came in and read that day. And Maura had just flown in from New York
Yeah,
come
literally
in
that
for it.
morning, I think.
And so we just met her, went and sat and talked with her before the going in and really reading in front of the network.
So the table read is basically the beginning of the whole process, and where this cast is together for the first time, reads the script, and since it's a pilot, everyone from the network's there, and it's sort of
see what kind of chemistry we have together.
And it's a very sort of high pressure thing. At least it felt that way for me. And I remember before we got everyone together for the table read, Dave read with Maura and 2 other actresses. And then I had to make a decision in like 5 minutes.
Yeah.
And Brad Gray, the executive producer, said, go take a walk around the block and just think about it.
Wow.
And I literally did. And I thought, I like Maura.
Yeah. And I think you asked me who I liked, and that was immediately Maura.
Immediately Maura.
That's true.
That's great. Because I can't imagine it being anybody else.
Now, there's Vicky, who also came in and auditioned and was great. And we liked Jimmy Burrows, I think, had seen her on Broadway, maybe in Damn Yankees or some musical. She had an extensive musical theater background, and we really liked that.
I remember being at the network test, and Stephen was there, and Vicky was there, because I was sitting next to Vicky, and I have a tendency to hum absent-mindedly, like a lunatic.
I've always wanted to ask you about that, but I wasn't aware you were aware of it.
Well, yeah, and Vicky kept saying, "Would you please stop that? Would you just stop that? That's really annoying." She just kept yelling at me
I
to
just
stop
thought
humming.
you were adorable. You came in these green leather shoes, and you just looked like the most adorable guy in the world. I said, I certainly hope this man gets it. He's so good.
And here's
then
Kurt.
Kurt Fuller. Kurt
an
Fuller, who was
excellent actor.
always really annoyed that he didn't get on this show as a regular.
Yeah, that his
I would
character
see
gets
him
fired.
for years after that, and he would be annoyed about that.
He's a very funny actor.
very funny man.
Now, right there by Andy was, well, we might as well get into it now. Originally, the part of Joe was named Rick.
Rick,
and
yes.
it was the station handyman, and we cast Ray Romano.
Yep.
Yeah, we did.
And-
Or I didn't. But
Yeah.
And then halfway through rehearsing the
week.
pilot, we had to fire Ray Romano.
Sure, that'd be great.
I talked to him about it later, and he just said he was nervous and felt like he wasn't sure what to do, and he knew he was, floundering, and he said it almost felt like a relief to
not do it.
then go on to be the
A
most
billionaire.
popular
Right.
and highly paid
Popular.
actor in network television.
Yes.
History, yeah.
I was very happy when Everybody Loves Raymond became a big hit, though, because I
Me
always
too.
carried that guilt around with me.
Well, he was very funny, but
It was,
yeah.
the rhythms were totally wrong for as fast as this show was going.
Yeah.
It was just bum da bum da bum da bum.
The cure for the common cold could be no further away than your kitchen cupboard. Dr. Jeffrey Chin has been dispensing herbal remedies from his office on Mott Street since 1953.
Chinese medicine has
So the fill-in we hired for him for the pilot was a guy who used to be on Blue's Clues. Is that correct,
No.
Kent?
Carmen Sandiego.
Carmen Sandiego.
Carmen Sandiego. Paul doesn't have any children.
Yeah, I don't know the difference. And then
Here's the break room when it wasn't the break room.
That's right.
This
Yeah.
is when it
originally
was
the idea was that people would be in there
doing
recording
something about radio.
recording and
Yeah.
editing
Yeah.
until we realized that the show
Was not
worked
about
better
that.
when
Yeah.
we never really saw anyone doing their jobs.
And Lisa's character was originally written as being more sort of slutty.
Well, in your mind.
No, originally that she was really flirting with the Dave character
Oh, that's true.
when he came in.
That's true. But in the originally pitching the pilot to the network, the romantic comedy element was not a big part of it. It was,
Which is why you doused it immediately.
I think it might not have been a part of it. And then it ended up becoming a pretty big part of the first 3 seasons.
Yeah.
The one thing I didn't want to do, which we ended up not doing, was do the will they get together or won't they get
which
together
was
and
brilliant.
stretching that
It
out.
was like boom,
Second
boom. It was
episode,
already
I
there.
yeah, the second episode they got together.
got
And I always
together.
preferred that because I
Yeah.
thought it was more interesting
That was brilliant.
2 people who'd done something and then
And that's how
live
grown-ups
with it.
tend to get together.
I thought it was really
Grown-ups don't
interesting.
debate it for years.
Yeah.
You see Phil coming in now, but Phil had maybe 12 lines in the show. He had a very small part in the pilot.
That's true.
It was not big. And he was the biggest, probably the biggest name in the show.
Well, it was the Phil Hartman show.
It was. It was.
Now, Kent, correct me if I'm wrong, but Jimmy Burrows often tells me that this pilot shoot, the night we brought the audience in and shot the pilot, was the fastest pilot shoot he's ever done.
It was very fast.
We were done at 9:30, weren't we,
yeah,
Kent?
very, very fast. In
It
less
was
than
done.
2.5 hours, it was in the can. And of course, it was very intimidating working with a guy like Jimmy Burrows, just for obvious reasons.
For you mean?
Oh, for me, yes.
I
As
was
an assistant
terrified.
director, it just first time working with this man was an incredible undertaking.
Because didn't Jimmy start out as an assistant director himself?
He did.
Well, it all
Working
seemed to
for
work
Jay
out.
Sandrich, I believe.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
I can remember standing on this set for the very first shot, and Maura and I are fake talking, and both of us saying, "I've never ever been this nervous in my life," because this is something I really think is special,
Yeah.
and I thought it was special the very first second of the show.
It was such a fun week. I mean,
Yeah.
the cast by the end
Except
of that
for
first,
the middle of the week when it was just we'd rehearsed it too much already, and because we're a cast that
There is
learn
that
to
sort of,
fast.
there is that sort of, with a regular show you rehearse for 3 or 4 days.
Right.
With a pilot it's more like 7 days, and there is that sort of life that goes out of it sometime around the middle,
Yeah.
but it eventually comes
But,
back.
it's something as important as the pilot. It came right back. It was
This was only it was like even after like the table read the first day, I felt like I'd been working with you guys
forever. I felt the same way.
Already
All of us
felt like
did. We always felt like an ensemble immediately.
Yeah. My other memory of this show is that I never stopped moving. I think I
true.
ran.
Me too.
I think
That's
I
all
ran
I
100
did.
miles in this episode.
I think I was in the first 4 scenes just introducing everybody to everybody.
I
wasn't
think
it?
the metaphor Jimmy Burrows used was you want Dave to be like a ball in a pinball machine,
Yeah,
just
and he was.
constantly moving.
Yeah.
And I think also the one thing I didn't accomplish.
Oh,
that-
this is my favorite thing in the show. I love this.
I like this too.
$250 for one of these things doesn't even include the strings. Look, see those?
That was my favorite thing to do on the show.
Yeah.
If I didn't do anything else on this pilot, I would have been happy.
Fast. Boy, you are a cold-blooded son of a gun, Dave. But God bless you. I didn't think you were the firing type.
No, actually,
Anyway, the one thing that I wanted to accomplish for no good reason, except that we almost did it, was to make the entire episode happen basically in real time. But there do end up being 1 or 2 time.
But it feels
cuts.
like
Time
one
lapses.
continuous motion
Yeah.
the pilot did.
one thing we did rolling resets on almost
Yeah.
everything in this
Yeah.
episode. So this is one where we'd do like 20 minutes
Amazing.
without stopping.
Yeah. But everybody could do it. Everybody,
Yeah.
we were already together. We were in sync.
You know, back in the early episodes like this, when we would go in for the sound mix, we would always add the sound like that, the phones ringing and the sort of hubbub of the office, and I eventually got rid of that because I found it so distracting.
Yeah.
You hear it, like,
The little radio in the
and to
background.
hear the radio in the background. I found that distracting. And Kent, I don't know if you remember. No, at this point you weren't producing, but I remember we had a terrible time after we edited the pilot because there was something wrong with the way the audience was mic'd and getting the laughs to sound just normal, like a normal sitcom.
Really?
We went through
They'd
terrible
given each
time.
audience member a flange pedal.
Well, that was
which
the problem.
Yeah, in retrospect, it was a mistake.
Not a good idea.
Dave, had you seen like Andy Dick on Ben Stiller or anything before you worked with him here?
Yeah, I'd seen him on the Ben Stiller show and thought he was, a lot of people said he was just a B-grade Marty Short, but I said no. That guy's funny. But I thought he was hilarious, and I'd also met him. I didn't
He was
realize it
hilarious.
till we were in production on the show. Actually, maybe the second or third season, that Andy admitted that I'd met him once after doing a Kids in the Hall show at the Roxy in L.A., and I was out actually trying to have a conversation with Janine Garofalo at a bar. Yeah. And there was a guy who just kept interrupting and being annoying. And saying, "Why don't you just get a room?" And I actually, it was like really driving me crazy. And just before the Ben Stiller show had ever been on the air.
Yeah.
And I finally turned to him and I said, "I've never said this to anyone in my life, but if you don't go away, I'm going to hit you." And then Andy,
Well, he thought he was probably just being funny to you, right?
yeah, and years later, Andy admitted that was
he
him.
was the guy?
He was the
Oh,
guy I
that's
almost hit at
funny.
the Formosa.
That is funny. Well, I remember I was a huge fan of Kids in the Hall, and I remember Especially when we went through that sort of bad period where someone was calling around and saying Dave blah 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 is not good.
Oh my God.
I got from Broadway Video the entire Kids in the Hall set
Sat down and watched it
on videotape. No, I got it and edited together my favorite Dave moments.
Oh, and put them. Oh, that's
but
great.
not even professionally, in my own house with 2 VCRs, watching them all. And
I remember that. And then I also remember coming over and working at your house with
that's right,
with John Ricci.
With John Ricci, a writer
He came
who was
over and
on Larry Sanders with me.
Yeah.
To do Punch for the pilot?
Just to like
get ready, because I had to go audition for everybody.
Ah, right.
I had to go.
That's great.
Like I had to read for
remember,
everybody involved.
I remember doing a chemistry thing with Jimmy B and you before we went to network, so that we could just do exactly what you wanted me to do in that room, and it was really helpful.
Jimmy really is he's a great director, but he's specifically a great pilot director because he just, as a writer, he just makes you feel like, he tells you what's wrong, but he also makes you feel good that everything's in good hands. You're not going to have to worry. And I think he does that for actors too, doesn't he?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, he told us when we were shooting the pilot, he said, that when we're done here, I'll leave you guys director proof. Is what he said. Said you guys will know your characters and you'll be safe.
You'll be done, yeah. And we did immediately know who they were. It was fun.
Will this chair do, or do you want a lighter one to beat him with?
But he just popped in and out a couple of times in this pilot, and he just wasn't in it a lot. It was weird. When I saw it later, Phil, yeah. He just wasn't in it a lot.
Yeah, well, it was so much Dave's story, and also trying to
you got to introduce all the characters.
Yeah, trying to introduce everyone with just 1 or 2 lines.
That's all. Yeah.
Oh, you want to talk about long scripts? You should have seen the original version of them. And Kent, you and I had worked together for years before this.
Yes, we did. Larry Sanders.
You were first AD on the Larry Sanders show. Is that right?
That's correct.
I remember this. I love this scene.
I forgot. I realized I haven't seen the pilot since it aired, I don't think.
Played a game of basketball today. Here's Phil McNeil to tell you all about it.
The Knicks made it a pair at Madison Square last night as Charles Oakley led the boys.
He does have a good radio voice.
Oh, it's perfect. It's great.
In the second of a 5-game series.
What the hell was that? Ed, I'm sorry, I'm not really much of a sports guy.
Well, what else, gentlemen?
I don't know.
We lapsed into watching the show.
Well, we hadn't seen this particular one for a long time, the pilot. And this was probably, 3 months before we shot the second one?
Yeah.
Didn't we shoot the next one in April, like Paul?
Yeah.
I think so, yeah. We shot this. This was around Christmas time that we shot this.
Yeah. This was in early December or late November.
Yes.
Yeah.
And
go ahead.
Oh, no, I was...
And did we know by Christmas that we were picked up?
I think so.
I think we did. I think it was a good Christmas present, as I
That's
recall.
right. I remember I was in New York and I called everyone.
Yeah. It was cool.
Yeah, that was good. Considering while I was doing the pilot, I was a nervous wreck, and I'd just gone through the worst breakup of my life. But I think I kept that hidden from you guys.
Yeah. Well, that and we didn't care.
That and we didn't care
That's right.
about you. Really.
I personally had the feeling that the pilot was going to get picked up at the table read when I saw Don Ohlmeyer circling around the table during the table read, and just the way he was looking at it made me think that it was going to be a keeper.
Yeah. I didn't know who Don Ohlmeyer was at that point.
He was one of the heads of NBC at the time. I remember, actually, and I like Don now, but I remember finding that a little off-putting, not for myself, but thinking if I was an actor, I wouldn't want someone walking around.
I didn't even know. I probably never noticed it. I never looked up in the friggin' script.
Probably just as well. Might have made you nervous.
It would have.
It's so astonishing also to think that for that first table read, how many people were there. There was a lot of people. There must have been like 30 people.
Yeah.
An applause break. That's uncharacteristic for our show.
Yeah, well, you usually don't keep them in.
That's true.
Yeah.
They make me uncomfortable.
I know.
This was where I think maybe it was a network note that I had to exert my authority. Had to show
That's
that
true.
I was
That was
real.
one. That was one thing that through the week and through the rewriting process, the network said, and they're right, that you wanted to see Dave,
At the end of the show, he had to be the
strong.
boss.
Yeah.
He'd be the guy.
And that sort of his nervousness and frustration at the beginning would be redeemed by the fact that he was
capable
good at the
of
end.
doing
Yeah.
the job.
Right. Now TV's Wally Langham comes in at the end of this again.
That's true.
Yeah.
One of his first appearances on the show.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, Paul, a question for you. When you were doing this pilot, obviously during the pilot process, they have run-throughs for the network. What were the big network notes for the script?
I'm trying to remember. The main one was the one Dave was talking about, is make sure his character, shows himself to be strong and capable at the end. Or as Jimmy Burrows inimitably said, you got to have a victory for the kid.
Yeah, the kid's got to have a victory.
Kid's got to have a victory. And that was one of his notes on every episode.
Well, the big thing I remember about Jimmy B is we'd be in the middle of doing them. He used to go, Stevie, do that thing. Okay, go, moving on. Stevie, do that thing.
Me, sorry. Foley, we need a joke. Foley.
Because you would write one right there. It was amazing.
I just
Now
got to work with Jimmy
there's a
again.
little tag.
There is a
here at
tag.
the
That's
end.
what I'm saying.
Yeah.
This is Wally.
Dave, you want to talk to me?
And this was reshot from during the third show. I remember it specifically.
So 3 months later, this was reshot?
No, 3 shows later. Yeah, 3.
Well, yeah, so it was 3,
yeah,
it was
three
3
months later.
That's right.
Yeah, and I don't remember why.
I think this might have been because I think we wanted more of a moment between Dave and Lisa at the end.
I think you're
something
right.
to lay in some kind of
What was going to happen?
yeah,
with
some
the
kind of
characters.
romantic
Yeah.
setup.
Could be. Or it could be I'm just making it all up as I go along.
Which is it?
You'll never know. But either way, you work for me now, so see you tomorrow, Dave. 9 a.m. this time.
And then
Yeah.
Lisa.
And because that's what was different about the pilot. That didn't happen.
Oh, Lisa.
And I think there's a little thing here with the eyelash that I think Dave came up with.
Well, thank you.
Dave, can you
Really?
confirm or
Do
deny
you remember
that?
anything?
Let me see if I remember it.
Chance at the job?
He hasn't seen it, you know.
Yeah. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but within 3 months, 4 tops.
Thanks for the vote of confidence.
You're welcome.
Now we're just watching the show.
Yes,
You
we
know
are.
what?
But there's going to be an eyelash thing here.
You've got
See?
like an eyelash. It's just an eye. You're not
Here?
getting it. It's right
Here?
it's-
Where?
it's-
Here?
You're not getting it.
great.
May
I think that was me.
Yeah, that was you.
There we go.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Oh, that was
Reminds
lovely.
me of some old comedian, but I don't know who it is. It's
Jack Benny.
Out there today.
Oh gosh, please forget about that.
I already have.
Well, you don't really need to.
See you tomorrow.
And then a little sweet touch also that Dave came up with. Yeah, I like that.
Very nice.
Hello, Wally.
And there's Wally.
I'm Jeff Adams.
Oh,
The new guy?
what kind of new guy?
New sports guy.
Sports?
You okay?
I'm fine. Yeah. So Jeff, what do you think of the big
Jody
game tonight?
Mann, another Larry Sanders Show alumnus.
That's right. You had several.
Alumni,
right?
alumnus.
Great to have you aboard, Jeff.
There, that was a good one.
That was a good one.
Yeah.